Hey, this is Cornelius, Lindsey, and welcome to the Silent Majority. You know, with growing partisan distaste amongst many voters, there's a silent majority that's growing that doesn't find a home in either of America's two major political parties. People don't know how to identify themselves, and a large number of people are simply not voting. Of all the voters, many people are just unsatisfied with either the candidates or the system. This silent majority is growing, and we have something to say. Welcome to the Silent Majority. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Silent Majority. I am your host, Cornelius Lindsey, and I thank you for being here with me today on one of, we're entering into the finality, the finale. What is how you say it? The finale. That's how you say it. The finale of this season of Silent Majority. And I have my good friend who I've had many times before, Mr. Rob Kelly. R. Kelly, are you there?
Hey, Rob Kelly, I'm here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, you don't want to go by the initials, huh?
Right. For obvious reasons.
Okay, Rob, there is so much going on right now in the political world. Where in the world do you want to start? I mean, we both live in Georgia, so there's a lot of content there. We could talk about Washington, D.C. Hey, we could talk about this red wave that also hit. That was a huge red wave with a lot of conservative women who were voted into the House of Representatives. We had some seats that were picked up in California. We had some seats that were turned in Florida from Democrat to Republican. There's only one seat that flipped from blue to red, and that was actually in the state of Georgia. Representative-elect Caroline Bordeaux. So, I mean, where you want to take this thing to?
You know, I like you said, there's so many places we can go, and I just think that I speak to the shifting of the political climate. You know, I think that I wonder if. Well, I'll start here. I think it's interesting that you mentioned, especially in California. I was very surprised that such what is normally known as such a liberal state, went red. Had several places that went red. That was very telling to me, and I think it's the beginning of people saying, really asking how far left is too left.
How far left is too left? Wow, go ahead.
Yeah. How far left is too left? And I think it goes to show that the majority of America is moderate. I don't think it's far right, and I don't think it's far left. I think the majority of America is moderate. And I think a lot of the seats switching, particularly in those states that we see leaning, and having more bends to kind of expand to our far extreme left, we see a lot of red becoming more increasingly red. So I think it's very interesting.
When you say that, and when you say the country is more moderate, maybe give me two, and let's point out maybe two or three issues we could say that the country is more moderate on. Are you referring to the economy? Or on, fiscal responsibility? Are you referring, when you say more moderate, are you referring to healthcare? Which when I say healthcare, I believe I'm also throwing abortion in there too, which is a hot button issue where it comes to education. Like when you say the country is more moderate, exactly where in the issues?
I think fiscally, definitely. I think the country is more moderate. I think that there is a push towards, when it comes to economy, there's a far left push towards socialism. I think the majority of, just America is more moderate. I don't think that the majority of Americans want to see us go towards socialism. I think the majority of Americans, actually like capitalism. I just think they want fair capitalism. I think they want capitalism that works for everyone. And so like those type of issues, I think, just the extreme, when it comes to gender issues, transgenderism, and the transitioning of young people, I think that's a big issue. I think that that's an area where the country seems to be more moderate than the media, I guess, pushes. I think when it comes to abortion, I think that, you know, the way I would say is that I think that while a great majority may actually not be opposed to abortion, I think that they still disagree that the government should be able to tell someone who can and can't have abortion. So even people that I know that are kind of left leaning with abortions, a lot of them for themselves say, "Hey, I don't personally agree with abortions, but I don't know if I want the government dictating that." So, and that's still a more moderate position than, "Hey, let's go to partial term abortions and abortion on demand or abortion at any time before the first breath," which is extreme kind of left leaning philosophy. So when I say moderate, it kind of spans through several issues.
So I like this road we driving down. How far left is too far? Let's talk about the Democratic Party here for just a minute. So one thing the Democrats noticed, I mean, before 2020 election, the words were out there. It's going to be a blue wave, a huge blue wave. I mean, not only is Joe Biden going to win, but he's going to win by such an incredibly large margin. There's going to be so many new, blue Democrats going to be elected to the House, ultimately elected to the Senate. There was, I believe it was like estimated over $80 million that was put into South Carolina for that race against Lindsey Graham, where Lindsey Graham won comfortably. I believe it was over $100 million put into the race in Kentucky with McGrath and Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell came out comfortably. There was money put in Iowa with a Joni Ernst, where she won again comfortably. There are other seats that there was no Republican incumbent seat that the Democrats turned over, in the Senate. So they didn't get this blue wave they wanted. Now the Democrats came back, tail in hand. Something has to change. Something's wrong. Something's off. And then there came the rumblings, because now when they go back, they now have to choose a new Speaker of the House. This already been talked. It says Nancy Pelosi has already understands that she won't be Speaker of the House because she doesn't think that she has the support. There should be people there who will support her, but I don't know if she has enough support to stay. But now there's even the rumbling between those of a progressive wing and then those who are of the who are of the more moderate wing. Like just yesterday, or maybe even this morning, that I read, Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia. He made a statement that says all AOC does, and I'm paraphrasing here, that she tweets a lot, but that's really all she does. And so it's almost as if AOC and Representative Alexandria, that she's being pushed, her and, Representative Tlaib and the rest of it, they're being pushed into a corner of the party, or almost being pushed outside of it, saying, we're not going to say defund the police anymore. We're not going to say this thing. We're not going to say this. Stop using the word socialism. Stop using the word socialist. And these are things we're not going to do. So do you feel like the Democratic Party right now, along with we'll get the Republican Party next, do you feel like the Republican Party is in a major need of a facelift?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things he said in one of the earlier episodes. I remember saying, that the Democratic Party at this election would be in an existential identity crisis, having an existential identity crisis, because they have to decide who are they going to be. Are they going to be more moderate, and appeal to moderate? Because for a little while, the AOCs, and those that were kind of in her camp were pushing, the moderates. Is there a place for pro-life in the Democratic ticket? Right now, it doesn't seem there is. And so what's happening is that anyone that's pro-life, almost, if that's one of the most important issues to you, you won't have to vote Republican. Is that the best? Is that the best place to be? Is that where Democrats really want to be? So I think that they've drawn prior to this election, they drew a lot of lines in the sand. And now they have to go back and kind of remove some of those lines and say, is this really to be successful? Are these lines the most effective? And I think, one of those lines, like, were okay, defund the police. I feel like they were going that way. And then these elections showed, hey, we have to pick that line back up, and we can't be so extreme because we're going to lose. If we continue to go down this path where we're letting, far left liberals push the whole party towards, just a far extreme perspective, in various, whether it's economy, whether it's socialism, whether it's, if they allow that push to happen, what we're going to see is people leave. I'm confident, that if Donald Trump wasn't such a active part of the Republican Party, we probably would have seen an even greater shift of people come over to not only moderate, but then go over to the Republican line. And so, I think that, with a more, if there's a less polarized figure for the Republican Party in the future, as the head of, the face of the Republican Party in the future, I think that you'll see a mass exodus. And so, and I think that they know that, and it's shown by how that even though, from what is shown anyway, currently, that, the president, didn't win. We see that all the way down the line.
So you're admitting he didn't win?
Well, I said from what's seen right now,
Oh my God.
And I use my words very carefully.
Uh-huh. So okay. So let me, you know what? Hold on. Well, I'm gonna go for a quick break, and then I'm gonna come right back after this. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So I'm back. You're saying that you actually believe all the information is coming out right now about, the fraudulent votes, all these things.
So what I'm saying is that I believe that if there is suspicions of fraud out there, then I think it's the people's right to take every precaution and every route to ensure that there was a fair election had. And I think it's our duty as Americans. I felt the same way when with Stacey Abrams. When people felt like she was robbed, I thought the same thing should have happened with her. I think that, election integrity is the basis of our democracy. If we fall into a trend where we can't be sure of the integrity of our elections, then, that takes us so far back as a country. And it makes us, look, if we look globally, on how many of these other countries, how their elections happen and how there's so much turmoil, there's so much violence, there's, there's some countries that, there's bloodshed, after each election. Why? Because there's no election integrity. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think that, if there are people that believe that, this election was fair, and, and anyone has to say that is being reasonable, that there are extreme anomalies with this election, just statistically, across the board, there are some extreme anomalies. And I don't think that that's by any means, a far stretch. I mean, I think, if the statisticians say, hey, this election is statistically impossible. It's not only an anomaly, it's not only rare, it's statistically impossible for 500,000 votes to come in and every single one of them say Joe Biden. Those type of things, just as a logical person, it does make me go, are these enough to sway an election? I can't call it. But, I think outside of choosing whether it's a Biden presidency or a Trump presidency that moves forward, for me, it's more about who we are as a country and us being able to believe, and depend on the the fairness of our elections.
Now, let me ask you this, because I think this is where my question comes in, and that is how far is too far. Okay, I think that any rational person can look at this and say there's an issue somewhere. When Stacey Abrams said it, and she was, for those of you who don't know who Stacey Abrams is, she's now a household name, or she should be if you identify in any type of way with politics. But Stacey Abrams, she ran against Brian Kemp for governor. That was 2 years ago. And when she ran, she believed that there was voter fraud, there was issues going on, and that there was not a clear election integrity. Well, when she said it at that time, the same way you said it, Rob, I think anybody at that time should have been like, well, if you feel this way, let's investigate it. Let's figure it out. Stacey Abrams has, to this day, she has not conceded. Brian Kemp is the governor of Georgia. He is recognized as the governor of Georgia. The results were sealed. He is now the governor of Georgia and will be, at least for the next 2 years, until I believe the Republicans put up a candidate, and I believe that candidate is going to be dubbed by Donald Trump and ultimately brought up to primary Brian Kemp. You know who I think is going to be, Rob? I think it's going to be Doug. I think it's going to be Doug Collins.
You think so?
I do. I think it's going to be Doug Collins. I believe it's going to be Doug Collins. I believe that Doug Collins is going to be the one who's going to be christened by President Trump. And I believe that in 2 years, Doug Collins is going to mount a campaign against Brian Kemp. And every person who, well, I won't say that, I'd probably say 85-90% of people who voted for President Trump and who still have some type of fight left in them in the Republican Party, they're going to vote for Doug Collins, ultimately turning over Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp right now is not popular. I mean, his approval rating is 30-something%. And in my mind, I don't know what it is amongst Republicans, but I tend to think that it's probably really I think it's lower amongst Republicans. So, but nevertheless, I think that something has to be done. But my question to you is, Rob, is how far is too far? Because at some point, while the lawsuits are out there, while everything is happening, I think we have to be concerned about the democracy of America, unless we just throw the whole thing out, we throw the whole thing away, and we just get rid of it all. And because if that's the case, then, hey, ride with that and say, just let the whole thing burn down. But how far should President Trump take this thing before we say, okay, enough is enough?
Well, I think he should go as far as, our framers intended for them to go when there was discrepancies in an election. I think that there is a process that can be that is outlined, and I believe that's where they're following. So, I'm going off the top of my head, but I believe if there's election discrepancies, then you recount the vote. If there's still election discrepancies, then you have two options. If the Electoral College can either, based on what the certified count is, they can choose to certify the votes, and then the president see that that is elected that way, or each of the states can say that we want to instead of going with what the Electoral College say, they can vote to pick new electors and have those electors decide who they want the presidency to be for that state, and go that way if they believe that there was really an issue with the validity of the voting. So I mean, there's a fail-proof system. Well, I won't say fail-proof, but there's a system in place for situations like this, and I think